I'm Jeff Gould, America's storyteller. Many people drive across America to see America, and one of the iconic places to drive in the middle of our country is Chamberlain, South Dakota, and next to it, Oakoma, and there's a place called Al's Oasis, and it's a tourist thing. It's a big deal. And also, if you look out across the horizon, are small communities that still exist and thrive because of that sense of community. And I wanted to introduce you to RF Buche, who is a fourth generation grocer who knows how it is to compete in this world and still have the heart to care for his community, honoring what his father said. Listen, nobody goes hungry on my watch. That's not his words, it's mine. But in this interview, you will be fascinated to learn about this whole world that you may not know anything about. And it's going to be a fascinating conversation. Enjoy. I'm Jeff Gould, America's storyteller. I like to interview interesting people on interesting things. And sometimes in the world, when we talk about doing good, one of the things we forget is a business by its nature can be an engine to do good for many people. I mean, they employ people, they give salaries to people, they give purpose and meaning to people. And RF Buche is one of those guys who has helped not just his community with jobs, but also on some interesting philanthropic adventures. So I just want you to dial in and enjoy this conversation with a man who's, if you've heard his name, maybe you've mispronounced it. If you haven't heard his name, you're about to hear a really interesting story about a man who's doing great things in the world. RF Buche, how are you, sir?
I'm great. And you, Jeff?
Good, good. I'm going to tell everybody about you. RF Buche is a fourth generation grocer and a CEO and president of GF Buche Company, which is a family business that was started over 100 years ago, 1905, in Lake Andes, South Dakota. And he's had a passion for the grocery business going way back when he was 4 during a blizzard, which you get around here. He sneaks out. I'm sure the family was not happy to see what happened to him. He went to the grocery store to help his dad. So that passion has been running deep and continues. GF Buche Company has 25 locations, 14 rural and tribal communities across the state of South Dakota. And Buche's Foods is one of them. And is it Gus Stop or Gas Stop?
Gus
Stop.
That's after my great-grandfather, Gus Francis Buche. That's where the GF comes from.
Okay. Well, I always thought it might be the case. All right. Buoy Ace Hardware and Lumber, Al's Oasis, 450 team members. You don't say employees, you call them team members. We'll get a look at that. RF has also served in leadership roles with the National Grocers Association, South Dakota Retailers, and Jobs for America's Graduates. So, before we ever met, you almost cost me my first job. I'll tell you the story real quick. So I'm living in Mitchell, South Dakota. I'm working at a radio station. And I have to do the live read for Bouche's. It wasn't a grocery store. It was like a clothing store, dry goods store. Maybe you remember that.
Sure, I do.
And I was told in no uncertain terms that that's not how you say it. And I think anytime you're new to a community, you get these words that catch you up. And if you're a young guy, kind of put egg on your face. So that's when I learned it's Buoys. It's Buoys. It's Buoys. I have never mispronounced it ever since. Now, tell me about RF. Is your name?
Actually, it used to be Buche.
Oh, yes.
Believe it or not. And when my great-grandfather first came over to the Yankton Sioux Reservation, Lake Andes, his friends, or his colas, as they say in Lakota, kept calling him Buoy instead of Boucher, and so he just left it. So that's the origination of my name.
So you are French, I'm assuming.
Alsace-Lorraine, which is a country in between France and Germany before World War I.
Yes. Disputed territory, if I remember my history right.
You are correct.
And RF, is your name literally those two letters? Some people are.
My name is Robert Fritz, and I'm actually the third. So I guess I got hung with the initials. It's a tradition that the oldest is named after their grandmother's maiden name. So my grandma's maiden name was Fritz.
Huh.
And it could be worse. My dad had Forrestal. So
his middle name was Forrestal?
His middle name was Forrestal. That was yes, that was that's the Irish side on my father's side.
Well, I've heard a few names. Who's the person I remember? She had a ordinary last name, and she married a schmuck, and she I said, "Wow," but he was a good guy. Yeah, but anyway, so anyway,
well, my wife married a schmuck as well. It just happened to be my last name.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. So I'm really interested in the junction between you and philanthropy and business and rural America. This is an interview that can be heard anywhere in the country, in the world, and so we might dabble in some local things, but realize that people are listening nationwide because it's an interesting story that I think is certainly applicable, and I'd like to get into your head a little bit about your own philosophies in business and in philanthropy and stuff like that. First off, what does it say on your shirt? Does it say Team Buoy?
Team Buoy Cares. That's our 501c3 nonprofit arm of GF Buche Company.
And what does that do?
We do three things. We have three pillars, which are hunger, help, and education. And hunger is probably the biggest one. That started from when I was 7 years old working with my dad in a grocery store. And I suppose work would have been fairly loose term back as a 7-year-old, but nonetheless, I was out there with him, and there was a young mother who didn't have enough money for her groceries. And so my dad quietly went up and made sure that her groceries were paid for. And when she left, I said to my dad, why did you do that? And he just said, RF, when you're in this business, it's your moral obligation to make sure no one goes hungry. And I've never forgotten that, ever.
It's your moral obligation to make sure no one ever goes hungry.
That's right.
Wow. So, boy, this is fascinating. This is fascinating. So many ways my mind wants to go with this. So I'm going to follow that where you just led.
Sure.
Because there is an algorithm that's available for online shopping. And when I was at the grocery store down here, I noticed that many of the stickers underneath the shelves, that's not a sticker, that's a little tiny TV screen that you can change the prices instantaneously.
Sure.
And as I was looking at that, I thought to myself, I bet if it snows and it's really icy outside, and the algorithm knows that 6 people bought some ice melt in the last half hour, I bet I could raise the price on that ice melt 30 cents. And because the grocery business runs on really tight margins, that could be a game changer. And then I come to find out that online shoppers, that if I understand correctly, and you probably know the answer to this, if I register as, Jeff Gould, it pays attention to what I'm buying. It figures out my income level, and it can adjust the prices accordingly because it knows I won't really care. And then I thought to myself, well, that's not fair. And then I thought, well, but maybe a rich person can afford it and they don't care. And then I thought, well, I imagine if the company was truly morally based, they might do a little bit of a Robin Hood thing where they would overcharge that guy so they could undercharge this person over here. So I'm just, you led that question that sprung into my mind.
Sure.
You must be aware of this thing I'm talking about. You're in the industry.
I'm not aware, but nor am I surprised either. we're at least in our company, and I want to say that a lot of independents like myself, not that quite that sophisticated. We we have electronic shelf tags like you're talking about, but we only use them. Basically, it was a labor savings for us and making sure that our prices are more accurate. So we don't algorithms is not a term that we're using in my everyday business.
But you can, I guess you can, I mean, what in the grocery business, the margins are tight, aren't they?
Very tight.
And what are the margins?
If we're lucky, we would make 1% to 2% a year.
Okay. Wow. 1% to 2%. And I guess you have to make it up on volume, which is fairly easy to do because a lot of people like to eat. I think everybody does. So you can get a lot of money in and a lot of money out, but you're taking just tiny incremental stuff off the top, which has to pay for the building, the employees, everything. You don't call them employees though. What's the term?
Team members.
Okay.
Team members. I'm a big believer that nobody works for me; they work with me.
Have you always felt that way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That comes from my dad and my dad's dad before him, and I'm sure my great grandfather Gus as well. It's their family.
It's unusual to have a business last as long and stay in the family. Usually, here's the guy who starts it, it's his passion. And then we got the second generation. Well, dad started it, I might as well. And then we got the third generation that says, I'm selling this thing because I don't really like this business. Not the case in your family.
No, we got really lucky. I am extremely passionate about this business. When my grandpa was alive, that both my dad and my grandpa would say that I reminded them of Gus. Gus had, I think his store count was up to about 21 or 22 until the Depression hit. And he lost all but 3 of those stores, all but 3. But one thing that I'm awful proud to say is that not only did he pay every invoice, but he paid every invoice on time. And so that's the integrity that I've grown up with in this business, taught by my grandpa and my dad.
Well, at the end of each of these interviews, of course, I pester my poor people that I talk to and pepper them with questions. You'll get your revenge at the end of our interview. You can ask me one question, but it can only be one question only. So you know that's the rules of the game.
Okay.
And I sent out a Jeopardy board, which you looked at, and you selected from the category "You Are History" for 400. If you could have an honest conversation with anyone in history, who would it be?
My great grandpa.
Oh, and this is Gus.
This is Gus. Yeah.
You did you ever know him at all?
No, I think he died when I was 5. We've got a 4-generation picture together, but no, I never got the privilege to get to know him.
What would you ask him?
Oh, I think I'd ask him about those how he grew so fast and was able to keep things together. I would ask him what he learned from going through that depression, and what kept him going. I would ask him about a lot of his promotions and the other things that he's done that I haven't heard about. Gus was one heck of a promoter. At one time he threw live turkeys off the roof at Lake Andes.
Oh, no, wait a minute. This sounds like a WKRP episode.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but if you caught it, you got to keep it for your Thanksgiving meal.
Okay,
yeah,
so
he
threw live turkeys off the what'd you say, the elevator?
The roof at Lake Andes.
Oh, the roof of the store.
Yeah,
Okay, all
yeah.
right. So they didn't die on impact like in the
No,
TV
no,
show.
no. These ones made it. These ones made it.
What other
These
kind of
ones made it.
promotions did he do?
You know, a lot of them. Um, he did a lot of. These aren't really promotions, but he he trusted his customers so much. I can remember, of course, it's been, 30 plus years. We used to travel around all the stores for anniversary sales, and we would get the older customers would come in for a piece of cake or coffee or things like that, and you get to talk to them. And the amount of people that uh, Gus Gus let me charge uh, shoes for my first son,
Mm-hmm.
or Gus gave me my first job. I mean, just things like that. That he just had a knack of trusting people, and it obviously worked very well for him.
Well, I'm a storyteller, and I use that when I talk to businesses. And I will sometimes say this when I walk into a place, you can tell if people know the story or are living the story. And I don't really know how to describe that except you know it when you see it. When people are buying into the story, the
Yeah,
heart of the story, then they like working for the place and then they develop followers like you're talking about. And that is, probably more indicative of business success than any of the measurables because people buy into that. How have you managed to keep that going, or is that something you still kind of struggle with?
no, I think we do a good job of keeping that going. I'm very boots on the ground. I know a lot of my customers. I know most of my team members. I think that I've got a little bit of Gus's ingenuity. It just some of the stories that I've just heard about Gus, he was definitely ahead of his time. I mean, I hear stories about how we've been in Wagner since 1920, and we had a two-story office building. And one of my favorite stories was that you would do all the shopping, buy your, whether it's a hammer or buy your clothes or flour, coffee, etc. You'd bring it up, and the clerk would write all the prices down on a piece of paper, and then they would clip it to a clothespin. And then upstairs, the bookkeepers were upstairs, and so they would pulley the tickets up. They would they would add the order and then put the total down. They'd come back and say you owe $4.10 or whatever it was. I stories like that are just like ingenious to me on how many ways there is to skin a cat, and I just really really appreciate hearing stories like that and hearing about how things people did things differently. I love hearing entrepreneurial
Well, and
stories.
what I'm hearing in that, and we know this personality type, the guy who's friendly, engaging, and is really fun to talk to may not be the genius on the calculator or adding facts and
Right,
figures.
right.
And the person who's good at facts and figures may have the personality of a brick. And so here is a way that you can, without trying to, you can obviously you can train people to be better. But if you can just let them be what they're really, really great at and find ways to, supplement that, that's a that's a great
Absolutely,
story. It's a great story.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I've always felt like it's my job to make sure that we get the best out of everybody, put them in the best position to win, or making sure that they're on the right seat on the bus.
So a friend of mine, Jim Riefenberger, does some training with businesses, and he says, Jeff, everybody gets to complain because they do, and it's like, oh, there's no good employees out there, and about a third of it is hiring the right person.
Right.
But he says the other third of it is training them constantly, and then the other third is leadership. So I think just in our short conversation, you have led with the heart of the story, which is our customers, and we care for our customers when we have to, and there's that heart piece. Uh, so I think that you must, I guess, express that in the interview. Are you having a hard time finding employees?
Not really. Not really. I don't, whether it's customers or employees, I don't look at them in that way. They're all relationships. And when you look at things as a relationship, I mean, I think all of us would say that. If you've got a relationship with somebody, you want to do what you can to protect that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that is making sure that, hey, what makes that person tick? What makes that person happy? What makes that person want to either work harder, spend money with us versus the guy down the street? But that's what we're trying to do. My dad used to always say, you can always find somebody that's going to sell a can of beans cheaper. But what you need to strive for is being the best in customer relationships.
Oh, kids these days. Oh, kids these days. Always on their phone of their various complaints. We've been complaining about kids these days since there's been kids, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
my dad's plenty complaining about me. I can promise you that.
Well, I am a baby boomer, technically, I guess. And I remember, and this is the arc. If you're a younger person, you wouldn't believe this, but baby boomers they were said with the same disdain as millennials. Baby boomers, spoiled, entitled, self-indulgent, and then somehow we gained some sort of status that I was never aware of, and now we're falling off the edge of the table. What do you? I mean, are you noticing? How do you engage with somebody who wants to be part of your team, who is just in the start of their job process? I mean, how young do you hire people?
Oh, I think we've probably got a few 14-year-olds around. That seems to be the starting age. I mean, unfortunately, there's only so many things that those 14 to 18-year-olds can do, and there's certain times that they can and can't work. But I think I went on the payroll when I was 12 years old, and I look back and if I didn't have work and I wasn't in sports, I don't know what I would have turned out like. So I always want to give those young kids a chance to work and a chance to being around retail. I just think it builds character when you've got to deal with customers, and I just think that's it builds character. I think everybody should have to do it.
How do you work with a difficult employee or a difficult customer?
Well, I think you just try and the customers, especially, you just do what you need to make them happy. I mean, I always just turn it right around and just, hey, what can I do to make this right? And I would say that at least 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you something realistic that you can do. And if it's realistic to do, you do it.
Interesting. I was just thinking about, I was an officiant at a funeral, and the family was nice. And then afterwards, they said, well, we want his suit back. And the funeral director said, well, what do you mean? Well, we got to get it back to the department store. So they bought it, and then they were going to take it back to the department store. Okay, well, then the funeral director said, well, there's a couple of things that, when a person dies, they're stiff. So what you usually do is you slit the coat up the back and you put him on that way. And you know that he was cremated. And I thought to myself, these people were going to bring that suit back to the department store. And they were kind of salty about it. Well, why weren't we told about this? And so, and I don't think RF that they saw. I would say that's stealing. I would say, listen, if you bought it for one
He's
event,
100% is. Yes.
I would say if you buy something that you want for one event and then you're going to turn it back in a couple of weeks, I would say you bought it, you own it, you'll use it down the road. That's my philosophy. But there are a number of people who do not think that way. They see your liberal return policy and say, well, this is sweet. I'm able to use this and drop it off the next day and get my money back. It's like free rental. I'm sure you've seen this.
Oh, yeah.
How do you now have a conversation with this person?
Well, that one would be a lot more challenging than I think some of the
Yeah, I
conversations
gave you the
that I
ultimate one, right?
But I don't know if you've ever seen the video that give them the pickle, but that's kind of our motto is we just are going to do what we need to. And we realize that, one or two or three or four out of 100 people are going to take advantage of that, but we're okay with that. I would rather, I'm the guy that's got to get up, look myself in the mirror the next day and make sure that I did everything I can to make a customer happy and make it right. So
tell me that video, Give Them the Pickle. What's that about?
Give Them the Pickle is about, it stemmed from a conversation about a burger joint that, the customer complained about their hamburger didn't come with pickles anymore. And so he just goes on about just do the things that the customers expect. He's got this joke in there about how, you go into a bank and it's a nice luxurious bank. And then you've got pens that are chained to the deal. It's like, why don't you just give them a pen? I mean, come on.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, come to think of it, I haven't seen those chained pens for a while. So I guess that's...
Maybe the video wore off on them all.
I did get my groceries the other day, and the person who checked out, I thought, well, this was a sign of a well-run business. She said, thank you for allowing me to help you today.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And I thought, wow, now, maybe that's now company-wide. Maybe the next time I go there, I'll hear everybody say that, how's your food tasting type stuff. But yeah, I thought that was training at its best.
It is.
And I think that in a company as large as yours, the continuing stories of how you are living out, Gus's legacy, I think they help people love to work for you or work with you, I guess.
Work with me. Yeah. We used to bring all these trained, high-powered customer service people in. And until one of the consultants finally said to me, unless you've got everybody saying the same thing on the same page, you're going to struggle with customer service. And so I remember specifically that aha moment was, okay, we've got these millennials that we've got to get taken care of, and so we boil it down to one word, which is guest, and we spell it GEST, because the customer is the you, but G stands for greeting, E, eye contact, S is a smile, and T is a thank you. And so that is the absolute minimum that we expect out of all of our people to each one of our customers. So that has really, really worked well. And there are times where you'll get somebody that will take that extra step and say, just like you said, thank you for allowing me to help you today. That's pretty cool stuff. I love hearing stories like that.
Right. And then you realize that what makes a meaningful job almost has nothing to do with the job. It has to do with the attitude in the job, right?
Yeah.
What's that? The richest guy in town, VJ Smith. I'm sure you've heard that story about Marty, a guy who works at a Walmart who shakes the hands of the people.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking yesterday to our producer here who said that there's a guy up at a fast food store, and he's, probably, my age, and he is He's a joyous worker. He's working at a fast food place and he's joyous. Now, what's sad to me, RF, is that in that particular place, he might be the only guy who's loving his job. A lot of guys are there and you can just see it in their demeanor. It's a job.
Right.
They don't really like it. Their feet hurt. They would love to not do that. What percentage of businesses would you say are not living a good story, that are just a place where you get a job?
Oh, probably 80 or 90.
Yeah, that's what I would say. 85 to 90%, which means 85 to 90% of people who are working are literally wasting a third of their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad.
Yeah.
Sad. My wife tells me every day that you don't know how lucky you are that get up, put your pants on, and just love to go to work. I mean, I eat, sleep, and breathe this business, and feel very fortunate that I do.
Is there another generation after you?
Well, we'll see. I've got 2 kids that are in their teens, and we'll see if they have an interest in doing this. I think they see their dad working so much that maybe that concerns them a little bit. I do know I had a daughter that she told me a little bit. She's 30, 31 or 32 now, and she told me that, Dad, it wasn't the hard work that bothered me so much, but I just couldn't stand being away from my family as much as what you had to be gone, and that makes me a little sad that I wasn't able to do that. But this is a 24/7 business, unfortunately, and lots of sacrifices that need to be made.
What's the best piece of advice you ever got?
Oh, my dad. If it were easy, everyone would do it. I don't care what problem I could bring my dad. It wouldn't matter what it was. I mean, they could be burning me at the stake, and he'd say, "Well, RF, if it was easy, everybody'd do it."
Thanks, Dad. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it. I know it. But he's made me tough, and as they say, tough times don't last forever, but tough guys do.
Oh boy, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
What's the piece of advice you wish you'd have gotten?
I don't know if there is a piece of advice that I wish I would have gotten. We've definitely had our struggles in GF Buche Company for sure. I've had my back against the wall several times, financially or otherwise, and you hate it when you're going through it, but when you come out the other side, you're so glad that you had that experience, because you come out of it just stronger and smarter. And so I don't look back. I don't wish I had any breaks. I just or wish I'd been given any advice. I love to look at each day, and I don't look back a lot.
Everyone goes to a grocery store, but there is there's behind the scenes stuff, right? That we are oblivious to, but you know. What is some secret sauce type stuff? A piece of little behind the scenes stuff that the average guy doesn't know that you know in the business?
Oh, I would say that just how, and I'm going to speak mostly to rural, smaller volume stores like what we have. And volume makes such a big difference. And how difficult it is to order and have fresh product for meat, produce, dairy, things like that. That it's a real balancing act. The other thing I don't think people realize is the difference in pricing, and I think they just look at Walmart and would expect that we should be right in line with that pricing, and you start me down a road you probably don't want to go, because I could talk on the Robinson-Patman Act forever. But
I don't even know what that is. What is the Robinson-Patman Act?
the Robinson-Patman Act came in about 1936, and what was happening back then, there was a big chain called the A&P.
My grandfather worked for the A&P, so I know about this. Yes.
Yeah, they had about 40% of the market share, but they were using their sheer size and force to force small retailers, small rules retailers out of business. And Congress stepped in and said, that's not the type of country that we want to live, and so that all pricing must be fair. Okay. Well, right now you've got Walmart and other big box that are not only trying to be the lowest, they are ensuring that they are the lowest by forcing their competitors to sell higher prices to smaller retailers. And this is a mafia-like tactics, but it's the case. It is the case. There was just a Pepsi case that was just opened up and found out what that was like, and that was against Food Lion, who is no small slouch for a grocery chain. So it's you're working as hard as you can, but you can only do what you can do.
My brother-in-law was a dairy farmer, and he said something similar. He said, I had to get out of the milking business because what I could pay my co-op for was at a different price point than the guy down the road who was milking 1,000 cows. And how am I supposed to, I mean, if we're both, unless we're both paying the same, how can I stay in this business?
Yeah.
And what you're saying is that there is a little bit of coercion where not only would that happen, but the big guy would say, and I'll buy it if you increase the price for the guy down the road. Is that
something?
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah, that's the country that we're living in today.
All right, so I'm going to give you ultimate power. It's only for this interview, but it's going to be really heady, RF.
Yeah.
You are now the czar of America. You can change one thing. What's it going to be?
Oh, Robinson-Patman Act. Easy. All I want to do is get it enforced. That's it.
Okay.
All I want everybody to do is obey the law.
Well, this went back to the antitrust stuff with, Rockefeller, who was building up his oil empire. And there's a small little deal in this little town, and he'd figure out what their break even was. And because he was so huge, he could afford to lose money at that very same area until that guy went out of business. Then he bought it at pennies on the dollar. And after he was purchased, then he could raise his prices. And so is that unsavory? Absolutely it is. Is it illegal? It is because of the Antitrust Act, but somebody's got to bring that to court and run it through the courts.
That's right.
Right. And so, right. Well, I would say that your footprint of your towns, do you have competition in these towns, or are you the only guy in town?
Well, I think each one of our towns has a Dollar General in there, and they're big competitors of ours. And then sometimes we have an independent, real close or right in the town, and Walmart is a direct or indirect competitor for sure, because we just don't. A lot of our towns, we don't have the main street or the jobs to keep people there all the time. So people at least feel like they have to get out of town. And once they get out of town, they take advantage of Walmart pricing. And that's where I think the rubber meets the road. What I fear for is what happens when guys like us aren't there anymore. And, who's going to sponsor the ball teams? Who's going to help with the church bazaar? Who's going to help with the cancer patients or the Jones family that lost their house in a fire? I don't see Dollar General on the back of any ball team's uniforms. And I just worry about what happens to rural America when their local grocers are gone, because I believe they are the backbone of their communities.
Well, I will say it this way. First, it's the grocery store, then it's the school, then it's the one bar and the one church, and then you're done.
You're done.
And I've seen that over and over again. And I would say this to chambers of commerce, right? I say, listen, if people don't love your town, they're not going to care about your town. And what are you doing to help people care about their town? Because they can buy it on Amazon or they can make a trip to a big city and get it. But then, as to your point, well, they're not going to pave the streets or support the local school or anything like that. And then that decision that you've made has destroyed the very thing that you love about that area. Now, I do understand that there's a certain percentage of people who are not altruistic at all, and they are just the way they are. But most people will respond to that. And do you do any, I mean, of course, you're trying to build your company. Do you do anything in your towns to help the towns, love themselves?
Oh, sure. I mean, we are big supporters in our towns. I mean, one of our core values is supporting our local communities. Very, very, very important to us. We pride ourselves that we're very community minded. So we are the people that are sponsoring the ball team. We're all the people that are helping at the church bazaar. Team Buoy Cares has a tremendous way of helping with local cancer patients. We are the people that come to or even organize when there's a house fire in town.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's what small towns are. We stick together, and it's important. It's important to me, and I hope that it's important to towns. Where it becomes difficult for those decisions is when somebody's only got $10 in their bank account, and they've got to make a decision on where they can take that $10 and feed their family. And, I'm not going to sit and pretend that, our prices aren't outrageous by any means, but, Walmart or a Dollar General, you're probably going to get a little bit more for your money. And so it's hard to compete with that.
Well, I would say that I don't know that Dollar Gen ever sells any perishable goods, right? Everything's canned. So
they're into perishable now also.
Yeah. Oh boy, up the ante a little bit. And you're talking about that margin of 1 or 2%. Let's just pick hamburger, which is, God Almighty, hamburger's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if one of those pounds of hamburger goes brown and nobody wants it and it's past the expiration date, and I'll just say $6 a pound, whatever it is, it's more than that probably. So you have to have sold like 600 pounds to make up for that one. And again, you're just kind of guessing. I mean, when people come to the grocery store, you can't say, hey, we're out of hamburger today. I mean, you can, but that's a bad day. Well, what do you mean you're out of hamburger? So you try to, right? Now, if I was a restaurant, I'd cook it into something else.
Right.
But you can't really do that, do you? Or maybe you own some restaurants. I don't know.
We do own Al's Oasis, and there's a grocery store in there, and
Okay.
so we have found quite a few efficiencies by having both those. And I will say that's been a good coin in your pocket to have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very difficult because if you turn around and even you freeze it fresh, and it's still good, you're selling that to that customer at a discounted rate, and then you're missing a sale on something that you could be making a full margin on. So it's quite a balancing act.
I see behind you, you have a lot of native art. So you work with a number of different communities and a number of different tribes. Talk about that.
Sure. I just working with these tribes it's just a natural for me. I just absolutely love it. We took a store over in Pine Ridge. We took the lease. There was a operator there for 51 years. Really just kind of operating. He was kind of a slum operator, I would call. One time he was shut down for 10 days for selling bad meat. And anyway, we took that store over, and he wouldn't sell us the equipment that wasn't any good anyway. But so we had to in 28 days, we emptied the store out full of equipment, just like pretend you took a grocery store and dumped it upside down. We took everything out and put everything in 28 days. And I stayed out in Pine Ridge for 40 days and 40 nights during that opening. But when you really get to know the people, when you break bread with them, you really come to have a respect for who they are and the culture that they are. And I just happen to enjoy that culture and that learning a lot. And these tribes in South Dakota are extremely special to me.
What makes their outlook different? What's their culture like for somebody who isn't familiar with it? How would you describe the differences?
I would describe the differences as there's meaning behind everything. Okay, you look behind me. I've got probably a half dozen star quilts sitting behind me, and a star quilt is given as a representation of a buffalo skin. And so it's a huge honor in the Native American culture to receive a star quilt. And that stems back from when the warriors would go out to battle or they would go out to hunt, and they'd come back and have a successful hunt, or they survived the battle and they would be draped in buffalo skins. But those buffalo were everything to that Native American culture. There was not 1 ounce that was ever wasted. Their hooves were used for tools. Their horns were used for cups, and not 1 ounce. I just think that things like that are super interesting, super cool. That buffalo, they looked at it, that gave its life so that many others could flourish. And I just think that's really, really special.
I've thought about that. An animal gave its life so you could eat. And I admire the respect of those who hunt the animal and recognize that. And I combine that to a kid who bites into a piece of chicken and goes, "What's this?" "Well, it's a bone." Well, he's never had a chicken with a bone in it. And he doesn't know that it was an animal. And he kind of prefers the chicken that's in the shape of dinosaurs. So it's like almost like a toy, and it's an entertainment. But if you're away from the farm and don't know what that means, to take an animal's life so you could live, I mean, there's a dynamic of a respect that you admire for people who still have that.
Absolutely. It's been a tremendous history learning lesson for me through these years, and I absolutely love it.
So 250 years. Our country is 250 years old. I love the story, but the story also has conquest, right? I mean, I think there's like 600 nations, and it's hard to know the records. Maybe it's 400. It's a lot. It's a lot of tribes and nations that were, taken over.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at that, because of where you live, what do you think about that?
I just think it's just super interesting. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just really interesting. I mean, there are parts of that Native American history that are obviously very sad, and there's still things that are very sad today. And there are a lot of things that aren't right. And but it is an absolutely interesting lesson in survival. And if that's definitely one word that I would use when I take a look at these Native Americans today.
Well, the horse, if I'm understanding right, is not native to North America. And somehow I think the Spaniards dropped it off and it swept around. And then certain tribes picked up the horse. And now think of the Lakota and Dakota and Nakota tribes. Thanks to the horse, it completely revolutionized
Right.
how their whole culture worked in terms of hunting the buffalo and other things. And then, of course, how they dealt with other tribes. And I find it fascinating that, somebody up on Hudson's Bay brings in a steel knife to trade. And then that tribe gets it and says, wow, now we have steel knives. Now we can get some work done here. And then they start to kind of subject themselves. And then that we see this whole transition of tribes just kind of being shoved out of the way because the next guy upstream has better technology that we were a part of. And then on the other side of that, because in our ancestors in Alsace-Lorraine or wherever, right, they live with livestock. So we were subject to all of these diseases interanimal that were not available to the native tribes. So here we have these disease processes that, well, it's the law of unintended consequences and the law of human nature and intended consequences. Yeah, I think that's, I think interesting is as good a word as anything, right?
Yeah. Extremely.
So, let me see. All right, you ready?
Sure.
Let's say that you can master any instrument, any musical instrument, or speak any language. And I mean fluent, I mean a maestro in both or either. What are you going to do? What's the instrument or what's the language?
Well, the language would be Lakota for sure. I could speak it a little, but I really, really wish I spoke it fluent. It's a difficult language.
Oh boy. My daughter, who taught in Wagner and Rosebud and also in Pier, will say that, and I didn't realize this. She said, "Dad, those were in World War II. They used those. It wasn't just
Code talkers.
yes,
Yeah.
the code talkers were from many, many different tribes, not just the Navajo." And I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
there were
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
were yeah.
There were a lot of Lakota.
Hmm. Hmm. Um. So let's just say you can take anybody alive today out to lunch. Anybody. Who are you going to talk to?
Oh boy. Alive today. I, I would love to have a candid conversation with our president, to be honest.
Okay.
I think that would be. I think that would be fascinating to learn the whys of some of the things that we're doing. I just think that would be an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Might not end well, might end great. Who knows? But it'd be interesting.
Yes. We're not in those halls of power, so we don't know all the ins and outs. And, probably it's going to be locked up for 50 years before we know.
Right. Right.
But it's wow. My dad would say, Jeff, beware the ancient Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. Uh,
Correct. Correct.
um, let's say you can spend 24 hours in history, any place in history, 24 hours, and you will live to tell the tale. Where are you going to go and spend that 24 hours?
I tell you, I'm just so fascinated with my great grandpa and that depression. I would like to go back to that time to understand how he survived it.
Hmm.
That's, I mean, not just financially, but emotionally, etc. That would be very interesting to me.
Do you like to read? What's your favorite book these days?
I don't read much. I do listen to a little bit of audio. Um, my favorite audio is Neither Wolf Nor Dog
Hmm.
by Edwin Norberg.
What's that about?
Really explains the Native American life in today's fashion and why they live the way they live, and why their culture, what they believe, and why they believe it. And it really does. And I would highly recommend listening to the audio portion of it, because they've really got the accents and the voices down, and or he does. I just think it's amazing. I could listen to that book probably once per year.
Well, as I said, I have four daughters. One of them is a teacher in the Pier area. And this was an interesting thing that she said. Dad, in the native culture, the moms and the dads provide the support, but not the discipline. If somebody's doing something wrong, it's an aunt or an uncle who steps in and says, "What's going on?" And let's fix this. Well, so if a kid is truant, that's who you need to talk to. The aunt, the uncle, maybe the grandma. The parents, that's not their job. But because of our system, you can only talk to the parents.
Right.
And it's
Right.
just one of those things where if everybody was aware of that, you'd say, "Oh," and everybody is aware of that. But this is
It's a classic example of that. Not all square pegs fit in a round hole,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
not everything, not one thing works for everybody.
mm-hmm. Hmm. Okay. Is there a question that I haven't asked you that I need to ask you? Is there some topic of this is for me because I'm a curious person, but this is also about you. You don't really get a platform like this all day long, every day.
Sure.
You want to talk about your nonprofits, or what do you
I
want?
would love to talk about
Let's
nonprofits.
do it. Let's do it.
That is absolutely one of my favorite subjects.
Okay.
What do you want to know?
Well, it's RF Buche Cares. What is it? What's the name of it?
Team Buoy Cares.
Team Buche Cares.
Team Buoy Cares. TeamBuoyCares.org.
And how does that? What is its primary goal?
Well, three pillars. Hunger, which we talked about, kind of stemmed from my dad, and so we work very hard at feeding people. In fact, during the SNAP crisis, we raised $290,000 that we gave out to SNAP participants, which I'm very proud of. I don't know that one other organization in the country did as much for SNAP as what we were able to do in South Dakota. So I'm pretty proud of that. Another pillar is help. And whether that be a cancer patient or clothing drives, or we've had instances where we've bought a chainsaw for somebody that cuts wood for others so they can make it through the winter with firewood. So we help out in fashions like that. And then the last one is education. And those are our Underdog scholarships. And these Underdog scholarships go out to kids that have overcome insurmountable odds.
Mm.
About 30 years ago or so, I kind of got tired of seeing only the kids with the best GPA, the kids with the best athletes, and quite frankly, the most popular kids getting all the scholarships. And there's nothing wrong with being one of those kids. I mean, it's great, but not everybody has the talent. But what about the kids that are having to take a full-time job because they've got to help their parents with a mortgage payment? Who's giving scholarships to those kids? Or the kid that he lived in 20 different homes his senior year and couch surfed because he had no house. That's what these scholarships are for. And to date, we've given away just shy of $500,000 worth of Underdog scholarships. And I'm pretty proud of that fact.
Wow. Wow. Scholarships to what? To tech schools, to colleges, to what?
To colleges, to tech schools, to any secondary education.
So let's just give some advice. A kid wants to go to school to do what? What would you suggest? What's a good endeavor for him to pour into? I think it's Benjamin Franklin said, "Pour your purse into your mind." Right. So if you were to invest in some brain capital, what would you suggest for a kid about, oh, I don't know, 17, 18?
Well, I'm always going to say retail because I just think it's the greatest thing that you can do. I just think that retailers are great entrepreneurs, especially small businesses, things like that. So being
Do I,
able to get
do I need to go to school to be a retailer?
no, not at all,
Okay.
not at all, not at all. In fact, I can tell you I do have a bachelor's degree from Black Hill State, but I can guarantee
And
you
played
that
on the football team,
yeah,
huh?
I did.
What were you? Were
Neither
you
one are bragging about it. I can promise you that. Neither the football coaches uh, nor the school is bragging about the diploma they gave me. I can guarantee you that.
uh, to your point earlier that you'll talk about? So, this kid was just living on couches, and we just needed to help him out. And oh, and by the way, he was a tremendous athlete. Oh, okay. What about the guy who just you know needs some help and can be a great contributor to society? So what if he's a B average, and so what if he can't dunk a basketball? So what? Isn't he isn't helping him maybe more important? Maybe I shouldn't say more or less, but
I, I,
there's an adverse distribution of wealth based on certain things that I don't know that I agree with. For example, if a kid is, I'll say 14, and your job is to have him emerge out of high school a better person, he or she. One would be the, joining a team and learning discipline and all the stuff that goes with sports. But you know what? You learn a lot about discipline and a lot about life just having a part-time job. And maybe you emerge at the end of that towards high school with every bit as much discipline, life skills as the person who has, the traveling sports teams.
100% agree.
Hmm.
100% agree.
Well, like I say, if you were on a TV show, we'd have cut this at 6 minutes. If you were on a radio show, maybe 20. But this is evergreen content, and you're welcome to take any piece of it you want to explain who you are to whoever cares to know. And as we consider this the end of our presentation, remember my promise. You could ask me one question, only one question. But RF, you are allowed to ask me that one question.
Well, who are you taking to dinner?
Oh, who's alive today?
Yes.
I thought about this yesterday. Bill Watterson. Now, as a kid, I loved comics in the paper. I loved The Far Side, and I loved Calvin and Hobbes. And Bill Watterson did the Calvin and Hobbes comics. It was part of my tradition, and he did it every day. And then just one day he stopped, and he said, "I didn't want to just stop. I didn't want to ride the curve off until people felt sorry for me because I wanted to end on a high note." And he did. He walked away. He's a reclusive man. He has never monetized Calvin or Hobbes. So that little picture of the kid peeing on something, right? Well, that's Calvin, right?
Right.
He didn't do that. People have stolen his stuff. He's never been a part of it. All he ever wanted to do was do comics in the newspaper. And I see some of these books behind me are Calvin and Hobbes. And I suspect he's a fairly quiet guy. And I would just like to, I don't know, I guess it's not a world beater, but I just thought of it yesterday. I would just like to sit down with him and thank him for giving me some of those small pleasures in life when I was a young guy. Thank him for his talent. and encourage him. Yeah. Have you heard
That's
of him?
cool.
Have you heard of him?
Nope, I haven't. Calvin Hobbes, obviously, but
Sure, sure. Yeah. His story is interesting. I
that
love
is
interesting
interesting.
stories. As you were talking about, I think the guy I'd like to take out in the political world would be any of the ex-presidents because
Good.
they don't
Agree.
have an axe to grind. They're not trying to stay and like they'll say, and I think any ex-president will say, listen, history will tell me how I did.
Right.
And when you're kind of you're elected, you're up, buddy, and we'll see. And how you react to the situations, maybe that was a genius move, maybe that was a terrible move. History's going to tell you. But I would like to ask one of those guys,
You're
and
probably right. I want to change mine to that.
yeah, and then figure, okay, can we talk about Area 51 or what's the real deal? Or, these files about who killed who, this conspiracy spirit, all that stuff.
See,
And
I'm more boring. I'd say, why aren't we enforcing that Robinson-Patman Act? I
yes.
really want to know
Oh,
that.
oh, yes. Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things we like about when we live in a democracy, what we have is 300 million eyes on various parts of the country. If everybody votes from what they see, that is the best possible form of government that we can have on this earth. When we limit that, well, now people aren't paying attention, especially as we're seeing now. If we just wanted to just focus on where all the people were, they would vote for what they like in the large city on one of the coasts. And nobody would see what's happening in the rural or interior areas. Nobody is going to see that unless we call their attention to it. And there's a chance. I mean, what do they say? It's a chance, RF. There's a chance that tonight the president of the United States is going to get it out his phone and he's going to doom scroll and he's going to find this interview and he's going to sit and enthralled watch this whole interview
How could he not?
and then say, get this RF Buche on the phone.
I agree. I agree. I'm just gonna.
If it
I'm
happens,
not gonna hold my breath, but I think it'll probably happen.
if it does happen, call me and let me know, okay?
I will.
If there's a way you can bring a recording device so I can hear what's going on with it.
You and me both.
Huh. Well, I just so much appreciate the conversation, RF.
Agreed.
Really,
Thank
really
you. I
interesting.
enjoyed this
Yeah.
thoroughly.
All right. Well, very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now you know a little bit more about what it's like to own a business in the rural parts of the country with a man whose heart is to the caring of people and how nuanced and difficult and important and fulfilling and interesting it is. I'm Jeff Gould, America's Storyteller. God bless.